Well, I've always been a fan of Frank's. Selfishly, a lot of people know him as sort of the godfather of special teams in collegiate football. In fact, one of his talks that he does, not the one he's doing for us, but one of the talks that he does is the quickest way to win a football game, and it talks about special teams. I love that. I've played with a lot of guys from his teams. They all have a similar profile. They're all gritty, tough, smart football players. Some of them are extraordinarily athletic, and you kind of get an idea what his program's like by the guys that come through the locker rooms over the years. And then to be totally honest with you, his daughter became really good friends with my wife and I, and they have a lake house right by my in-laws. So a little bit of an inside job there. So as soon as his coaching career stopped, I was like, ding, because nobody can, an active head coach, it's hard for them, especially from that far away to come that time of year. And we just reached out, and I shared with them what we were doing. And, those guys are really busy. Their calendars are crazy when it comes to speaking events. But he's pretty adamant about the profile of our event and being able to participate in it. So they were great. So we're excited to have him for sure.
Is this the first time that you've had kind of like a nationally known coach come to the camp?
Well, it's actually the first time we've ever really tried to do it, partly because of the date. It's virtually impossible. What used to be mid-April to mid-May, you're talking about, if you're talking about NFL coaches, you're talking about draft and mini camps. If you're talking about college coaches, you're just finished spring football, you're in the middle of the heavy recruiting season, they're getting ready for their summer programs. They have contractual agreements to go do all these things because of their sponsors. It's just a really rough time to try and do it. Now we're in March, so we're a little bit ahead of spring ball. We're just post collegiate spring break, so it gives us a little bit of a new population of people we can target. But we always try to back into who we bring in based on the message versus the person. Bringing in the most high-profile person is good if the message lines up with what we're trying to convey. Bringing in the most high-profile person just for the sake of bringing in the most high-profile person just ends up costing us a whole bunch of money because of the number of people that show up and we don't get the message we want. So we try to balance that out. That's why guys like Jeff Duke last year, Joe Ehrman, Tony Porter, these guys, in some levels they are nationally known, but they're not the people sitting at home watching football on TV that don't have, they don't really know those guys. But those guys have the message that we want. And I think when they leave, people understand why we brought them. But so this is just the first year we've really tried to do it. So we'll see how it goes.
How have you seen your camp kind of progress through the 8 years, now going on 9 years?
So the clinic will be 9. Camp is 12.
Okay, excuse me.
So I think I just mentioned to you guys, like one of the coolest things for me to experience just on a personal level is I try very hard to make this have as little to do with me as possible. Some of the people around me suggest that we got to keep name recognition, all that on it, which I'm fine with. But the point of it is we just want to serve this population of people. That's it. The cool thing that I've experienced in recent years is now people are familiar with what we're doing. And I truly feel like there's a bunch of people that are involved in, whether I was involved or not, I think they would still be around. People have fallen in love with the mission and the product of what's coming out of what we're doing, and there's so many great stories, and the seeds we've planted, now you see saplings and trees growing and things like that, and so there's tangible physical byproducts that exist in our community that are directly, like this thing we're doing is directly responsible for it. That's definitely, that's what we set out to do in the first place. So our goal has always been to try and change the culture that our young, primarily our young men, but young men and women are in as it relates to football, by empowering coaches to be better and just maximizing that time we have with them when they're doing that thing they love so much. It stops, but what do they take with them when it stops? When they hang their shoes up and they go on to real life, what are the tools that they took with them from the football field that go there? And how do we empower the people that are coaching those kids during that time to best, give us a chance at that. And I think there's tons of byproducts. We could probably spend more time than you guys have talking about them. But those are the stories that make me excited. So.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the racial empathy panel? I know that you've kind of tackled some of the issues there at the forefront with football before. I remember you did head injuries when that was really, why is that important now?
Well, great question. Things just happen in the world. Like I used to get really worried. Like, what are we going to talk about next year? All I got to do is turn on the news, and inevitably it sorts itself out. You go back a few years, you know, we've got domestic violence. You know, unfortunately, a guy hits his wife in the elevator, and all these other things start popping up. Pretty easy topic to address because obviously everyone's dealing with. So let's go take a look at this. How does this relate to what we're doing? What is our sports culture that we raise our kids in do, and does it promote it or inhibit it? And take a look at that. We feel really strongly about not coaching football and being involved in football just for blocking and tackling and the physical and mental part, but how do we use this as a relationship to really get to the heart of a player? Last year, Dr. Duke talked about that. I don't think there's any question that there's a bubbling up of racial stuff in our world. I find it a little shocking personally that it's something that people are acting like is worse than before when I look at a long history of bad racial stuff in our country. That seems to be that it could have been optimized year after year after year after year. And so it just seems like a really relevant topic right now. And there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of people that are raising their hands saying, hey, I think I'd like to be able to contribute to that. And it's one of those things that we're not going to hide from stuff that's real and relevant and great opportunity to do it. And I think there's a group of people that we've reached out to say, hey, would you be willing to participate in a panel discussion around this? And we'll announce who those people are. I don't want to put anybody on the spot yet until we have firm commitments on it. But we've got a really interesting, what I think is a very interesting group of people that are coming in and just be able to share to the coaches and administrators, like, you know, some tangible things they can take with them to help self-check and then maybe even have some practical application for how do I create a racially empathetic environment, you know, in our sports teams. Am I doing it? And if I'm not, maybe I don't even recognize that I'm actually doing something the other way and I need to correct it, right? I mean, how many stories in your life can you think of that you yourself were like, I can't believe I thought that way, or I said that, or the assumption I made about the, you know. So can we bubble some of that up and see if we can deal with it? That's the intent. So.
Jason, do you see any other places where your service project idea, I mean, have you seen it around the country that other camps do similar things?
I've had people inquire about it, and I'm assuming it doesn't happen very often. And I'm not saying, I didn't come up with it, so I'm not bragging on myself. If anybody wants to brag on anybody, Tracy Martin, this is her idea, blame it on her. Best idea we've probably had. I'm assuming by the amount of attention that we get from people in other places that it's probably not very common. You know, like NFL films coming out, and you know, why when the NFL Foundation found out we were doing, why was that so interesting to them? I mean, I think there is some uniqueness to it, but there's really nothing that's, I mean, anybody could replicate it if they just wanted to do it, right? Every community has a lot of people that probably would want to engage in this type of thing. I haven't encountered it, but I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of intelligent guys that came out of locker rooms, so I'm sure there's other guys doing it, but I haven't seen much of it, so.
What have you personally been doing in the last year or so?
So I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So basically that. My wife and I are working through kind of a transition. We're moving into a home, remodeling a home. You know, my son's 18 months old, so we kind of, you know, work through the pregnancy, then through the first year of that. So we're kind of getting into a place of hopefully a little more graduating to the next level of parenting, maybe a little more freedom to move around a little bit. But we've pretty much been locked in our home life for a while, and fortunately, guys like Edmund and Rick make being able to do this while I'm in North Carolina very feasible. The fact that I have like almost no sponsor turnover, which is fascinating. I love the city of Fort Wayne. Maybe there's some, you asked about why other people don't do it in other places. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, in 10 years, maybe there's 1 or 2 people that have approached me and said, hey, this, you know, we're going to go in a different direction. So the work becomes a little more efficient, so that helps me. But man, you know, I don't know if you have children, but people are like, so what do you do all day? I'm like, I got 2 kids. What do you mean what do I do all day? What does all day mean? I wake up, they eat, they poop, I change them, take them somewhere, I take them home, they eat again, they sleep, I stay awake, I wash them, I put them back to sleep, then I go to bed. Is there more to it? I don't even know if there's more to it. Then I look at my phone at the end of the day and I realize all these emails I didn't respond to, 2 things I missed. My wife was looking for me. That's my life. So I love it though. If you'd asked me 10 years ago and said, hey, this is what your life's going to be like in 10 years, I'd be like, that sounds terrible. But I wouldn't go back to my life 10 years ago today from it, so I love it.
And you know there's an opening down in Indy now at a certain football team. Are you interested in it?
That ship sailed, and I feel bad for Pat because he's so good. I mean, talent-wise, and there's my personality is different than his, but I absolutely appreciate his approach and how much fun he has and the whole bit. And I know a lot of his teammates who really loved him and how he was in the locker room. I knew him more when he was really young. But man, it's hard for me to watch when a guy's body fails him, because that cat, he could easily play for as long as he's played already again, easily, and especially playing in Indy where it's not that he played well because he's played in Indy, but Indy's a pretty friendly place to be a specialist. And he just, man, I was heartbroken when I saw that the good Lord just gives you one body, and it works until it doesn't. So I feel bad for him, but it sounds like he's got some other things going on that he finds pretty interesting too. So my guess is he's not too concerned about what he's going to do next. So yeah.
There are a lot of sports camps, and most of them focus on the young people. Yours spends about half the time focusing on the coaches. Why do you think that's so important?
So we only get so much touch with the kids. It basically amounts to a weekend. And it was one of those things we wrestled with a lot as the camp became more refined, was if we're going to try and change the culture of that these kids are in, can we really do it in just one weekend, or can we actually go and influence the people who actually have the other 51 weekends of the year, give or take? And so we thought maybe we're going to focus on them, empowering them, giving them some tools and resources that maybe aren't available to them currently, and bring them right here and minimize the barriers to entry, make them no cost, put them right in their backyard, try to condense it into small periods of time, coordinate with the school districts on what we're doing, and be open with them about it, and cooperate with them on it, those type of things, because those are the people who actually are influencing the kids. I mean, we get a little bit of shot at them, but I mean, if I sat here and wrote down like the 10 most influential people in my life, 6 or 7 of them are probably going to be somebody who yelled at me to run faster or swing harder, or coaches. And I think the more that the scholastic world and the public recognize the fact that there's a lot of education that happens without a desk and without a pencil and without a book, out on a field, and a lot of real life applicable things that happen out there, I think the more that people will recognize the opportunity they have with coaches, and the fact that sports, the idea that extracurricular is the term a lot of people like to use, is probably pretty antiquated. I mean, the reality is if you want to get a 14-year-old's attention, most 14-year-olds I know, you can try it with a math book, or I can try it with a football, and I'll take the football all day long, or a saxophone, or drumsticks, or something that's not whatever you want to call standard curriculum. And so we just believe there's significant value there and great opportunity to address some needs through the coaches.